Hey everyone, welcome to the Jazz Piano School podcast, episode number 30. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Brendan Lowe, and in today's podcast, I'm going to be going over how to use diatonic harmony. So the last couple episodes, I went over diatonic harmony and modes, and in today's episode, I'm going to be showing you the power of diatonic harmony and why knowing the degrees of the scale and the chords that are built off of them can really improve your playing and help your overall knowledge of jazz piano. So before I get into that, the website I've created for all of you listening is jazzpianoschool.com. You can go there, sign up for a completely free membership, and watch lesson videos. And I add a new lesson video into the library every week. So I'll add a new lesson video into the 4 categories that are on there: technique, harmony and theory, repertoire, vocabulary, and improvisation. So this is my method on teaching jazz piano, those 4 different categories. I will be releasing a course in the fall as I'm going through a rebrand and imagery design. So that will be available, and I'll get into those details as it gets closer on. But let's dive into this episode. So I talked about diatonic harmony and why it was not why it was important, that's what I'm going to be doing today, but how to use and find chords built off of the scale. So diatonic harmony, just to review, means a relationship between chords in a scale. So if you take a scale like the C major scale, you can build chords off of the degrees of the scale using notes from the scale. So let me just give you a quick example again. Here's our C major scale. Right? Now if I stack thirds up from the first degree of the scale, and that's generally how we build our root position chord, using notes from the scale I just played, right? I'm not using any black notes because in the scale we have all white notes. I build a C major 7 chord. So we would analyze that or call that chord the 1 major 7 chord in the key of C, right? So this C major 7 chord is also in other keys, but because we are in the key of C, it is known as the 1 major 7 because 1 is the first degree of the C major scale, and that's why we call it the 1 major 7. Now if I go to the next chord, D minor 7, right? I'm still building my chord up, and I'm using notes from the C major scale. Now this starts on the 2nd degree of the scale, so we would call this our 2 minor 7 chord in the key of C, right? And so again, we can go up all the chords: 3 minor 7, 4 major 7, 5 7, 6 minor 7, 7 minor 7 flat 5, okay? This is a funny chord, we haven't really talked about these yet. And finally 1 major 7. So in every key, okay, based off of a scale, depending upon the scale, if it changes, you're gonna have 7 chords. You're gonna have a major 7, minor 7 on the 2, minor 7 on the 3, major 7 on the 4, 5 7 on the 5, right? This is our only dominant chord within a key. 6 minor 7, 7 minor 7 flat 5, and then the 1. All right? So those are our chords. Now we have 2 majors on the 1 and the 4. We have 3 minor chords on the 2, the 3, and the 6, right? Here are our minor chords within our key. And we have 1 dominant chord on the 5 and 1 minor 7 flat 5 on the 7 chord, all right? So no matter what key I'm in, if I go to the key of F and I play and I know my major scale, right? We need to know our major scales in order to apply this. So if I know my major scale in F, the same pattern is going to apply for the key of F. I'm going to have my 1 major 7 chord, but now we're in the key of F. So here's my F major 7. My 2 minor 7 is my G minor 7 because it's the 2nd degree of the scale, and we use the notes from the F major scale to build our chord. So it will always build, as long as we're using notes from the major scale, we'll always build the same qualities of chords on the different starting notes of the scale. Does that make sense? So on the 2, it's always going to be minor, right? Because we're using the same pattern. On the 3, it's always going to be minor. On the 4, major. On the 5, dominant. On the 6, minor 7. These are all minor 7th chords, by the way, not just triads. On the 7, minor 7 flat 5, we'll always have that on the 7. And then 1 again. All right, so here are our chords. Sorry. forgot what key we're in. Okay, so my 7 diatonic chords in the key of F. Now, in the previous episode, I recommended going through all the keys and practicing your diatonic chords, right? You want to practice them in your right hand, your left hand, and hands together. That way you can go through all the keys, right? In B flat, E flat, E, A, D, and you know all the diatonic chords. You know that key so well, and that's very difficult. I mean, it takes a long time to know the keys so thoroughly. But I'm starting you out with that advice so that you can really create just a super, super strong foundation. I mean, everything's going to come so much easier if you are really working at the exercise I just gave you throughout all the keys. Pretty much all the exercises I give you should be done throughout all the keys. You never want to leave a key out, right? I mean, it's just as important as all the other ones. So, all right, now here is where we start to get into some cool stuff. Now we can, once you know your numbers, right? So if I say 4, you should know that's a major 7 chord. Okay, if I say 6, what chord is that? You should know it's a minor 7. If I say 2, you know it's a minor 7. I say 1, obviously that's a major 7. So if I say what's your 7 chord? That's your minor 7 flat 5, okay? Now in jazz or progressions, we talk based off of numbers. Because it's just it's a super quick, easy way to tell someone a progression or to explain a progression, or it's just the lingo, right? So that's where 2, 5, 1 comes from. So we're playing the 2 chord in any key, right? Let's say we're in the key of C. We're playing the 2 chord, and the 2 is always a minor 7, and you should know that. Okay, this is why you're studying the diatonic harmony, so that you know it's a minor 7. So if you're on the bandstand, someone says, "Here's a progression: 3, 6, 5, 2, 1." You're not gonna freeze up. You'll know that the qualities of those chords and how to play them. But if you don't study your theory, you don't understand the diatonic harmony, then you'll never be able to get to that point. So that's why it's so important. Anyway, 2, 5, 1, right? We have our 2 minor 7, our 5, 7, 5 chord, and our 1 chord. Now we don't have to say the qualities because they're given. They're the same in every key, the qualities of the chord. That's why we just say the progressions, like the numbers. So this, and for Anita listening to this podcast, this is how you're going to transpose songs into different keys. It's by studying the progressions. Now, if I look at a piece, Autumn Leaves, right? And I see C minor, F7, B flat major, E flat major 7, A minor 7 flat 5, D7, and G minor. So in the key of G minor, right? I believe it's in a different key in the real book. I think it's in the key of E minor. But let's say in the key of G minor. Now, in order to put this into another key, just the progression I'm talking about now, we analyze the chords, all right? And what I'll be doing actually is creating a video of a real book page to show you how we actually do this. I'm just going to explain it now while I'm talking though. So the C minor 7 chord, we know we are in the key of G minor or B flat major. It's relative major. And so how do we do this? The first thing we need to do is look at the key signature. And so when we see the key signature, we're going to know what key we're in, because that's what it tells us. Depending upon the sharps or flats, we know what key we're in. So certain keys always have the same number of sharps and flats. B flat, and this is again why major scales. This is why it's important to know your major scales, because when you learn your major scales, you'll know your key signature for that key, and you'll be able to continue to learn this process. B flat has how many flats? 2, right? 2 flats. B flat and E flat, okay? So when we look at the chart for Autumn Leaves, we will know that we're in the key of B flat major, or in this case G minor. It goes to G minor. So either or, they're both, the progressions will be in either the major or the minor, and I'll tell you how to see that. But our first chord is a C minor 7 chord. Now normally pieces start with a 1 chord. Sometimes they start with the 2 chord, like in this case. So our C minor 7, how we analyze the chords is we're going to count up from our 1, or the root of our scale. So in this case we're in the key of B flat. So I'm going to count up going by the degrees of the scale until I get to the root of the chord. So we have the C minor 7 chord, and this is 1 step away, right? So there's a C, and I know my C minor 7 is built off the 2. And so there we go. That's a 2 minor 7 chord in this chart. So what I do is I write 2 minor 7 above my C minor 7 chord. Now I know what degree of the scale that is. I know the quality, and I know how it's serving in the piece, like how its harmony is serving. Now the next chord we have is an F7. So I take my same process. I try and figure out what degree of the scale is the F in the key of B flat. So here's my major scale: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so I figured out that the F is the 5 chord, right? It's the 5th note of the scale, and this would mean that it's the 5-7 chord. Now we need to check, because sometimes, you know, composers will throw curveballs in there and throw like an F minor 7 in there instead of an F dominant 7. Now if it was an F minor 7, okay, since it's on the 5th note of the scale and it's minor, it's not in the key of B flat, because we know the only chord that can be the 5th of our B flat in the key of B flat is our 5-7 chord. It has to be dominant, a dominant 5-7. Okay, because of the pattern. All the degrees of the scale will occupy the same exact chord qualities. So if we have a chord quality that differs from our pattern, we know it's coming from a different key. It cannot be from the key of B flat. Thankfully, this is a dominant chord in Autumn Leaves, so we have an F7 dominant chord, which is our 5-7. So we have our 2 chord going to our 5 chord. Now, can you guess, everybody, where do you think it's going to go next? Yes, it's going to go to the 1 chord, right? 1. And one of the strongest progressions in jazz are 2, 5, 1, okay? And so the 1 chord's obviously easy, the B flat major. We're in the key of B flat. It's a major 7 chord, so that syncs up with a quality. If it was a minor 7, obviously it would be from a different key, but it's major, it's the 1 chord. So we have our first progression, 2, 5, 1 of this key, of this progression. Now that's how Autumn Leaves starts. So how do we use this? Let's say we want to play Autumn Leaves in a different key. If you guys are playing with a singer, right? Or it's good to practice through the different keys, right? We want to transpose this to a different key. We're going to need to know the numbers of the progression, and this will make it just worlds easy, right? Instead of you know, I don't know, any other, I can't even think of other ways how you would do this. It would just be a complete headache. Once we know our progression numbers, then we can transpose it into any key we want, because we've practiced our diatonic chords in every key, hopefully. So let's say we want to move it to the key of G, right? G major. We know we start off with our 2 chord. Now in the key of G major, what is our 2 chord? A minor 7, right? Hopefully you said that. So A minor 7 is our 2 chord. And what is our 5 chord in the key of G? Now if you forget, we can count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, D. We know our 5 chord is a dominant 7. So there's our 5 chord in the key of G. And again, this is why it's important to practice your diatonic chords, so that you know what chords are in each key. So we have our 2, 5, and then boom, finally our 1 chord. All right? Now we've just transposed that first bit of the progression into the key of G, right? It's that easy. So we continue through the piece, we analyze the progressions and how the chords fit into the structure of the piece, and then we can move it and take that template, like the numbers, so 2, 5, 1, and we can move that into any key we want by playing the same numbers, because it will be the exact same pattern in every key. Now sometimes, I don't want to get into this yet because I want to keep it concise and short, sometimes the keys will change in a piece. You'll see different keys. And in that case, right, we want to note what key it goes to. So if we're in the key of C and it changes to the key of F, okay, let's say we're playing diatonically in the key of C, we have the 1 chord and then a 3 minor 7, but let's say it goes to G minor 7. Now G is the 5th note in the C major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So technically that should be a dominant, right? Because it's 5. But that's not what's on the paper, right? On the chart it says G minor 7. So that automatically should set off some warning flags, like, uh-oh, we're not in the key of C anymore, because the 5 chord should always be dominant. So this chord has to be coming from a different key. Now a minor chord, if you guys know how many minor chords are in every key, right? 3. We have the 2 chord, the 3 chord, and the 6 chord. Those are all minor seventh chords, all right? So we have 3 minor sevenths. So this minor chord could come from 3 different keys. Now, how do we tell which key it comes from? Well, we need to continue to look ahead, all right? In the chart, it's going to give us clues as to what key it's coming from and how the chord is serving, right? In the sentence, is exactly like language. So if we look ahead, let's say I look ahead 1 bar. I'm just creating this up. It's not any piece that I'm talking about specifically. Let's say the next chord is a C dominant 7 chord. Okay, so C7, C dominant 7. Now, is there a relationship between our G minor 7 and our C7? Do you guys see a relationship there? Okay, the G minor 7 going to C7, that's going up a 4th. Now, in a certain key, when a minor chord starts on a note and then it goes up by a 4th to a dominant, that is a 2-5 relation, right? You see that? So that G minor is going up to the 5 chord. So this would mean G minor is a 2, C7 is a 5. And so we're getting a little closer. We have a 2-5. Now, we could say that those 2 chords are in the key of F, right? Because this would be 2 and 5 and then 1. And usually 2 5s will resolve to 1, but if they don't, you could write an F and circle it because that's a 2-5 relation. So that's automatically going to tell you from the key of F there. But usually it will resolve down to the 1 chord. So if we look ahead, we see an F major, boom, that's like our reassurance that we are in the key of F. I can put a big F there because we've just had a 2, 5, 1 pattern and we're now in the key of F major 7, resolving to the 1 chord. So when you see certain chords outside of the key, realize that the key is changing. Look ahead, see if the other chords fit with each other somehow, in a certain pattern. They take on certain qualities of a different key, right? And see what key it might be coming to. And usually there's a lot of 2-5-1s, guys, right? So you can usually spot a 2-5-1 and know what key you are now in by learning the 2-5-1. So hopefully that helps understand the patterns. Now the fun thing to do, and especially for composition, is just create patterns, right? Take any key. You can take any progression you want, and this is just the greatest exercise to compose a piece. Let's take a, let me see, 3, 6, 4. Hopefully I can remember these. 3, 6, 4, 2, 4, 1. All right, and you can start to compose pieces like this. So 3 in the key of C. And obviously, I'm embellishing, but this is how we start to build harmonies, right? So 3, and then going to our 6. I believe I said 2. I honestly can't remember what I said, but I'm gonna go to the 4, maybe back to the 3, maybe to the 2, and then the 5. And then 1. Okay, so now let's try and let me see if I can replicate that. So we had the 3. I'll play it more, standard. So here's our 3, 6, 2, and then I went to the 4, back to the 3, back to the 2, 5, and then 1. So now we have a harmonic structure, like just by putting a completely random progression together. I was just calling out numbers. And this is a great composition exercise. Just put numbers together and see what you can create. Now we can create some spacing, okay? And this is how we're starting to use our harmony knowledge, right? We can create spacing within the progression I just made. So it doesn't have to be bar by bar, chord by chord. We can make 2 bars for 1 chord. We can make put 2 chords in 1 bar. So let me change this up, and I'll put the first 2 chords in 1 bar. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll put the next chord by itself. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here's 2 chords per bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll put this last chord by itself. And then the C major. All right? So I'll play that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm playing a sus chord there. If you guys are curious, or like, that doesn't sound like a dominant chord. I'm playing a sus chord. So I had the 4 instead of the 3, just a quick tip. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. Okay, now we have our spacing. Now we just add some rhythm, right? We add some rhythmic, some rhythms basically to it. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit of rhythmic component to this, just randomly. I'm just making this up. Let me see. We can swing it. You can make it straight, whatever feel you want. Latin, choose a feel, right? You want to choose a feel. So that's kind of nice. So that's our swing feel. We can do Latin, right? I actually like that. I like that the most. I like it more than the swing. If we do more of a straight feel, this will kind of sound like Latin, but the Latin style, right, the drummer will change the groove. So this will be more of just a straight 16th note, like kind of more of an R&B feel. Okay, so you pick whatever style you want, and this is why learning diatonic harmony is so important, because you're learning the progressions, you're learning the movements, you're learning how the chords fit into the sentence, right? This is exactly like learning a language. So we need to understand the movements and how these chords work and flow in and out. And once you start learning these progressions, you're going to be able to reharm these pieces and just go off into these completely, well, it sounds like completely other direction, right? If I were to play Autumn Leaves and reharm it a little bit, it's going to sound completely like out of the harmonies, but I know exactly what I'm doing because I know the structure of it, right? So I could start with an F7 sus, go to a B7 for a tritone, altered, and then the B flat, maybe a tritone of the B flat, and then to a tritone of the E flat major for a sus, and then go to the minor. I actually really like that. I've never actually done that before. And then finish off into the minor. Right, so let me try that again. So we have the sus chord for 1 bar, the F7 sus. So F7 sus. Now we went to the tritone, the altered, then we finished it off, and again, don't worry about the descriptions. I'm just giving you an example of where diatonic harmony can lead to, and I'll get you guys there, don't worry. Okay, altered tritone, B flat major 7. Now we're gonna do 2 chords for the E flat. We're gonna do the tritone of the B flat, altered again, and then tritone of the E flat major, sus. Finally, we get into our 2-5 that leads to the minor key. A minor 7, this is just the regular. And then G minor major. All right, so here it is one more time. I'll just comp through it. Okay, so that's where we can go. That doesn't sound like Autumn Leaves, but if you start soloing over that, right? If my right hand's soloing over it, my left hand chords are comping that progression we've just reharmed. Right? It's like, wow, holy crap. That's taking you just like into a new world, right? Of just that's why jazz is great. It gives you freedom. You can take these tools and build your house, right? However you want it. The world is your oyster, right? You can go wherever you want. It allows you to have complete self-expression, and just the sounds and moods that you're feeling, you can completely convey them in jazz, and that's why I love the music. So that wraps this lesson up, and that is exactly how we use diatonic harmony and why it's important, okay? And so I've just given you a preview. I showed you a little bit how to transpose pieces by using progressions and why and how we're going to get into a progression. So, but learning the chords in every key and learning what qualities they are is very, very important, because I'll begin to slowly start speaking in terms of progression, saying 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, or 1, 3, 4, sharp 4 diminished, 5, sharp 5 diminished, 6, 2, 5, 1, you know? So when you know the chord qualities and in the notes of your major scale, you can start to play the chords based off of those degrees. And that's why it's so important to learn it. So thanks so much, guys. If you could please leave a review in iTunes. If you've done so already, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate all the support, and I really appreciate the comments you guys send me. Honestly, you know, it's great to get feedback. And I love getting people who are telling me things are messed up too, because I need to fix those. Sometimes I'll put something out there and I won't even realize I made mistakes in it. Like the last email I sent out or video, you know, I cursed in it by accident. And so someone told me I had a curse in there. Nico, thank you. And so I fixed that. So I need you guys to give me feedback. It just helps so much, and to create better content and just really provide the vision that I have to help you guys and instruct you on jazz piano. So that's it for the podcast, guys. Thank you so much. In the next podcast, I'm going to be going over beginner ear training. That's it. Happy practicing.